Okay, so for today, we're going to be doing a Fire Emblem game tier list. This is something I wanted to do for like a decent amount of time, but I've been too lazy to do it. But since I haven't uploaded in like a week, let's just start it. So there are going to be a few games that are missing because I have not played them. So like the original Shadow Dragon or like Gaiden and Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance aren't going to be in there. So that'll be. But other than that, I played pretty much all of them because I'm a loser who has nothing better to do. So starting off with, should I do chronological release or just. We'll just do like regular release. So I always forget. I think Blazing Sword came out before Sacred Stones, so we're gonna do that. So, as I like to call it, the Lyn game, because I really like Lyn. She's a cool character, gets a thumbs up from me. But it was a good game. Actually haven't finished it, and I've gotten up to like chapter 10 or something. I don't know if that's like a little over halfway through. A decent majority, good game. Like, it's a really well-made game for like the first, technically in America, the first game in the series at the time. At the time, it was a good game, and it still is. So for that, I think B tier, like, it is a solid game. There are just a few problems. Like, for me, I thought the game was like a little bit difficult. That may be because I just like kind of. I think it's probably because I just soloed with Lyn, and then I hardly, like, I used my other units, but anytime I saw, like, a tough, like, boss or anything, I just say, okay, let Lyn get it, or, like, let Ellawood get it, and then it'd just be the end of that. So I think that's half of my problem, but it's a good game. Like, I like the characters, I like the story, I like the music, like, it's all really good. It's not a bad game whatsoever. And then next we have Sacred Stones. Same thing as, I kind of hate saying this, but I always do get Sacred Stones and Binding Blade confused, or Blazing Sword. I'm so dumb. I always get Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones confused because they have like so similar graphics and all the portraits look so similar and the music's similar. And this isn't the only game I do it for. Sometimes like I'll look at screenshots of like Fates and Awakening, say, was that Fates or Awakening? And then I have to like, it's a whole thing. But I didn't like Sacred Stones as much as Blazing Sword. But it still was a very solid game. So it's going in B tier after Blazing Sword. But it was still a very solid game. Do not get me wrong. Love both of them. And then after that came Shadow Dragon. Now, gonna be honest, was not a huge fan of Shadow Dragon. At least the DS port. Like, the graphics were a little muddy. I didn't like how you had like the map on like the top screen and then like you moved everyone on the bottom screen. Because this was a DS game. And for some reason, this is still one of my main complaints about the DS. Like, it seemed like Nintendo was shoehorning like touchscreen controls in the games that like didn't need it whatsoever. Like, they did that with Animal Crossing. I forget which Animal Crossing, but it was the one on the DS. There's like a Mario game that kind of like New Super Mario Bros. Like when you go down the pipes, sometimes the levels would be on the bottom screen, so you'd have to shift your focus from top to bottom. That just got annoying, but the story was pretty alright. I mean, it wasn't bad. It's not bad. Characters are cool. Like, I like the characters. You know, you have your classics like Sita, Marth, Tiki. Haven't made it super far into the game, so I don't know all the characters. So don't get on me too much for that. But I'd give it C tier. Like, it's good. I just couldn't. I couldn't get into it like some others did. And then after that, there was Mystery of the Emblem, but that was never released in America, so I can't have an opinion on it. And then Radiant Dawn, Path of Radiance. We're going to add a new row, okay? Let's see. Add row below. We're going to make a haven't played row. So we're going to put those two in haven't played. There we go. That's fine. So we're going to put Radiant Dawn, and then wherever it is, Path of Radiance, and haven't played. And then we're also going to put all the Japanese ones, or the ones that only release in Japan and haven't played as well. Same with Thracia, or Thracia 776. Haven't played that game. The only interaction I've had with that game was Leaf being in N-Gage, and that's about it. So we'll leave that there. And then, since I didn't play Path of Radiance or Radiant Dawn, we're just going to skip to Awakening. And if any of you have known me for like 2 seconds, you know I love Awakening. It's my favorite game of all time. It's my favorite Fire Emblem game of all time. It just did so many things so well. Like the music, the maps are pretty good. The reclass system is like genuinely my favorite in the entire series. Like they really nailed the reclass system. And it had some really interesting DLC. And the ending was really good. And then you had like your character creator, and then all the second gens you could do, and like just character building, like all the unit building was just like technically the best in Awakening. Very closely rivaled the Three Houses, because in that game you could just go hog wild and just do like whatever you want, and it was beautiful. I loved Three Houses for that. Like the story may not have been good, and some of the characters are a bit wonky, but oh my gosh, do I love the unit building in Three Houses. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm gonna put Awakening in S tier. Just great game. Did so many things right for me. I loved it. And then next is Birthright. I played Birthright after Awakening, because I got Awakening, didn't finish it. Like I got both those games in like the span of 2 weeks of each other. Like I played Smash Bros. I was like, oh, I like Lucina. Lucina's cool, because at the time I mained Lucina, so I decided to play a Fire Emblem game. So I just picked up N-Gage, yeah. I picked up Awakening, then a couple weeks later picked up Birthright. And still to this day, I sometimes get Birthright and Awakening confused. Just the engine looks so similar. It's my bad. Birthright did have some problems, but in my opinion, it is the best version of Fates. Like, I like the characters a lot more. The story seems a lot better compared to Revelations and Conquest. I'll get on to Conquest later, but it just seems like, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong about this, but from what I've played, like compared to the other two versions, it seems like Birthright was like the original idea they were going for, but then they kind of branched off and made like those two other versions, because the story seems to be like the most like streamlined and make the most sense. Like there are times where there are just like giant gaps and like leaps between logic in it a little bit, but Birthright seems to make the most sense to me. So my gamer intuition wants to say this was the original like version they were going for, and then they split it up, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just, in my opinion, Birthright was just the best Fate. It just had the best story, the best characters, really good music. I really love the music. And then Revelations, we'll put Revelations in B tier, but before Blazing Sword and Sacred Stones. Like, still, really solid game. Really enjoyed it. It's cool that you have, like, all the characters. You're only missing, like, 2, technically, because you can't get, like, Izama or something like that. It doesn't really... You're only missing out on 2 units, I think, realistically. But you get all of them. It's still pretty good story. Reclass system is interesting. And now that you have more units, like more of them can like marry, and you can get like different combinations of second gen. Still very well done. Enjoyed that a lot. And for like our first and only F tier, I'm sorry, go on Conquest. Just for me, I wasn't as invested in the story, because the story in Conquest made the least sense out of like everything. Like Takumi just like died and then came back to life because he was all angry. Like the final boss in Conquest was like the most underwhelming thing ever. Like in Revelations, you had like the giant dragon god, and then in Birthright you had like fight your dad who became a dragon. And then Conquest is just your really angry brother. So it's like, okay. And then the only characters I like in the like for the royals in the conquest route is Camilla, and that's pretty much it. I know Camilla's horny, and that's a entire issue on its own. I'm not a fan of that. But other than that, she's a pretty likable character. And she was just like the only character I really jammed with. Xander was pretty alright too. Didn't care for Leo. Elise is Elise, so I don't need to explain anything there. Didn't like Elise. But yeah, Conquest was my least favorite. And I know it said, oh, this is going to be the hardest Fire Emblem game of the time, but like, it only felt hard because all the enemies were like a bajillion levels like above you. Maybe I just did something wrong in like classing my units, but the maps just felt hard because the units were just like had better stats than you. Then they removed like mechanics of the game. Like they removed like the battles, like how you could like just summon like enemies to fight in like that sub menu. They just took that out. And scrolls, in my opinion, are better than tomes. Like, because Conquest has scrolls, and then Birthright has tomes. And then, or reverse that. Conquest has tomes, Birthright has scrolls. Seems like the scrolls were a lot better. And that, just, I could go about this all day. Just, Conquest, least favorite Fire Emblem game. I beat it the one time. I don't know why I did that to myself. I suffered through all of Conquest, almost made the idiotic decision of playing it a second time, but I got through half of that and I was like, no. I tortured myself the first time. I don't know why I'm doing this a second time, but beat Conquest, just not a fan. And I don't want to drag on it all that long. If you like it, if anyone likes Conquest, I'm glad you enjoy it. Like, there are enjoyable elements to it, but I just personally, not a fan. Just couldn't get behind Conquest. And then, sort of similar thing with Echoes. So we had Conquest in F tier. Echoes, I'm put in D tier. Just not a fan of Echoes. I talked about this in my 10 games that I don't like as much as everyone else video. I'll link that in the description, I guess. But for Echoes, just wasn't a huge fan of all the characters. There was a few, like, Gray and Tobin I thought were cool. And then just the music wasn't all that good. And then the maps. The maps are like giant fields. Like, you will be right here, and then your enemies will be all the way over here. And half of your turn is just going to be, like, trying to maneuver your way across, like, this giant field of map that... The maps were just way too big, and it felt like just most of the battles were this sludge zombie creature that you found in a cave. And then there were times, like, I'd taken a break for a little bit, and there were times, like, I'd come back to the map, and, like, all the spaces on the maps were, like, just filled with enemies, and, like, you had to, like, clash with them, and it's like, I just want to move on to the main story here, and you're making me fight these, like, bandits and stuff, and just wasn't a fan of all that. The music wasn't all... Like, most of the time the music in Fire Emblem is, like, pretty good to good enough, at least. But in Echoes, it was just, like, meh. Wasn't, like, a huge fan of all that. So, yeah. Echoes going D tier. Once again, like Conquest, if you like Echoes, I'm glad you enjoy it. There are enjoyable elements to it. I just personally couldn't get into it. And then after that comes Warriors. Now, I made an entire video on Warriors. I'm a big Warriors fan, like, genuinely. Like, any Warriors games that exist, I like. So I like Hyrule Warriors. Not like a giant fan of Persona 5 Scramble, but that one's pretty good too. It was made by the same devs that do all the Warriors games for Nintendo. Just a big Warriors fan all around. And Fire Emblem Warriors was done really well, I think. One of my... like, no, not even joking. Like, it's in my top 5 favorite Fire Emblems, like, honestly. Like, if I'm going top 5, I'd go Awakening, Three Houses, Warriors, Birthright, Engage. That's what I'm going for my top 5. I don't know about you. So we're going to put Warriors in A above Birthright. And then After Warriors, I think Heroes came out, but I'm not 100% on that. It was either Warriors or Three Houses, and I'm not fully sure. Or not Warriors. It was either Three Houses or Heroes, but I think Heroes came out first. It doesn't really matter. For Heroes, it's a fun enough game. Like, I don't binge like Fire Emblem Heroes. Like, I don't put like a bajillion hours into Heroes. I just play it for the units. Like, every time, like, I've restarted Heroes like 3-4 times. I just like collecting the units that I like. Like, I almost had like the full collection of Hinokas. The only Hinokas I was missing were like the original and like the Camilla. Like when Hinoka and Camilla were like a duo. Other than that, I had all the other Camillas, or not Camilla, I had all the other Hinokas. And then I was so hyped when I got Christmas Crom. I'd been summoning for Christmas Crom like in December so much. Finally got Christmas Crom. I got 2 Christmas Lissas from it, so, but yeah, I just enjoyed collecting the units that were cool. I just like getting all the alt versions and just all the units and characters that I actually liked. Like, it was just a fun time. Heroes is like fast food, right? Like, I'm not gonna play it all the time, but when I do pick it up every once in a while, it is a fun time. So, I'll put it in B, like very last at B. It's a fun game, genuinely. And then after that comes Three Houses, and like I said before, Three Houses is one of my favorites. It's my second favorite. Story was not all that great. It had elements in it that seemed unnecessary, like plot points that seemed to just go nowhere, and character motivations that made like no sense, and just characters that weren't all that well explained to begin with, and just events that just didn't make sense. But I'll take gameplay over story any day, and Three Houses has that. Like, it has really good gameplay. I was ranting about this earlier. I love the reclass system. The reclass system is like my second favorite. The RNG does get annoying, just because like my Linhardt doesn't have like level A reason, so he has like a 75% chance to become a bishop. That is like pretty like inconvenient, but other than that, it's great. You can make any kind of unit into any kind of class and make them use any kind of weapon. You can make Petra use tomes. You can make Lysithea use axes. It's great. I love it. I really enjoy it. It's like one of my favorite reclass systems. I really do enjoy it. So, getting the S tier. I just really like Three Houses. It's just such a good game. And then after that was Tokyo Mirage Sessions Cross Fire Emblem. I made review on that game. It is a really good game, but it does feel odd comparing it to any other Fire Emblem game ever. So let's just pretend. We'll just pretend that it's a Fire Emblem game, even though it's more of a Shin Megami Tensei game. But I wouldn't exactly... I more put this game in Shin Megami Tensei tier lists. Like, genuinely, my favorite Shin Megami Tensei game is Tokyo Mirage Sessions. So I personally think of it more as an SMT game. But let's just pretend here. I already said that. Low A tier. We'll give it low A tier. Behind Birthright. It is a really fun game. I really enjoyed Tokyo Mirage Sessions. The story was silly. The characters are goofy. It did have really good combat. Like, all the skills and, like, just... It's just a really well done game. Like, I know some people are like, oh, I don't like the way that idle life is portrayed, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but the gameplay is pretty top notch here. Like, it's really well done. You can't dispute that. But other than that, it is just a really well made game. I know, like, SM or TMS did come before, like, it did come before Warriors and Three Houses, but I just now saw it. So that one's my bad. And then for a little bit, we hadn't really had all, like, any new Fire Emblem games until, like, what was it, 2022? Like, Three Houses came out in 2019, and then we got Three Hopes in 2022, so it was a little bit, but that's okay. Three Hopes, like I said, I do love Warriors games, and to a certain extent, I do love Three Hopes, but just like the combat wasn't done as well. It seemed like a lot of the enemies had like super armor, and the amount of times I'd just be in there like, huh, 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 and the enemy would just brush it off like it was nothing. That did get extremely annoying. And then your weapons could break mid-battle, which could render some of your weapons like completely almost unusable, which that did get irritating. And then, your shield breaking was kind of meh. So I think for Three Hopes, we'll go high C, like the drink. We'll go high C. Like, the story, I so much love the story of Three Hopes. Like, Three Hopes compared to Three Houses story-wise, Three Hopes is pure, like, 16-karat gold, and then Three Houses is one of those, like, gold chains you get out of the quarter vending machine. Like, it's just not... I'm not a huge fan of Three Houses story, but Three Hopes story is great. And then after Three Hopes, like, a year later, we got N-Gage. And like I said before, N-Gage is like top 5 favorite Fire Emblem. It is really well done. The story is, it's not as like, N-Gage compared to Three Houses is like a kid's cartoon compared to like Game of Thrones or something. Like, all N-Gage is like, you have my ring, give it back. Anything's possible with friendship, and my buddy Marth jewelry. It was just a silly game, but it did have some interesting mechanics, like the smash and break mechanic. That is something I would like to see come back. It was just good. It was a good mechanic. It was very interesting. I liked it. And then you can get skills from classes, but you can't carry over skills. So like if you get like if you get a skill as a swords master, but then you want to change to a hero, you can't carry over that skill. You only get like that one skill per class. But you can obtain skills from the emblems. Like each emblem has like skills, and if you get to a high enough like bond rank with them, you can inherit skills. So like Lyn has +5 speed. So if you're like level 5 whatever bond level, you can inherit that like skill. It's all cool. I mean, this is kind of one of my complaints with N-Gage, since like every character has availability to every like skill. It doesn't really leave you like, unlike with like Awakening or Fates, where you're like, okay, well this character only has availability to these skills, so I need to plan out and decide which skills should stay. In N-Gage, it was just, well, everyone can have ether. Why not? Not every character can have ether, but it's kind of like that. Like, every character can have the exact same skill. So, like, some of the skills kind of lose value, and some of your units kind of lose value. Because unlike with Awakening, like, oh, this unit has, like, Luna, or this unit has Gale Force, so they're going to get prioritized over these units. No, here in N-Gage, it's just, you know what, whichever unit I feel like deploying at the time will do enough. That's kind of what it is, but that's okay. Like, there are units in Awakening that I like, but I just can't use them because they kind of suck. So that's a bit of a problem. Like Flavia. Flavia's not like a bad unit in Awakening, but she doesn't have like Gale Force, so that kind of like hinders her a little bit. But yeah, N-Gage is getting the A tier in front of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, behind Birthright, and that's where that's going. But, I think that's all of the games. I don't know if I missed any. I don't think I did. I think I hit all of them. Yeah, I think I got all of them. But, yeah. Honestly, the only, couple games that I just flat out didn't like were just Echoes and Conquest. Other than that, I still do see, I do have some, enjoyability factor in some of these Fire Emblem games. And Intelligent Systems has done a very, good job, evolving and, changing things about the series. So it's just genuinely like nice to see like a game series go from like, oh, there are these mechanics and like these like rules in this game, but if you don't like those, you can just like try this game and see if you like these mechanics and these rules, and you can just kind of like flip flop between all of them because like none of the games are like connected to each other. Like a good handful, like Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, like those games are connected, and then technically Shadow Dragon and Awakening are connected, but you really don't need to play Awakening after Shadow Dragon, or vice versa. Like you don't need to play Shadow Dragon to play Awakening. They're separated enough. Like you're just the only like reference they have to each other is just Chrom is one of Marth's descendants. That's pretty much it. That's all you really. If you know who Marth is, you can play Awakening without having to play Shadow Dragon. It's pretty. It's just easy. It's just easy like that. But yeah, that was the tier list. If you guys had any disagreements or just like what you would have changed, feel free to throw them in the comments. Don't be a meanie about it. If someone's like, "Oh, I love N-Gage," you don't need to like start hating on them in the comments if you don't like N-Gage. Like, just let people enjoy their games, man. People can like whatever they want. If you don't like it, you can say, "Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoy it, but didn't feel the same." Just keep it respectful, even though I have a feeling no one's going to comment on this video. But that's okay. In the future, if anyone does, be respectful to each other. Spread love, not hate. But yeah, that was the video. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all later.